Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion, Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the resolution.
To the resolution.
Colleagues, HJR 100 is a perfect example of why we have a representative form of government. And yet, what it's intended to do is to circumvent our form of government and move a topic that is of extreme importance to a direct democratic vote. The difficulty with that vote is that there are consequences that most voters would not be aware of. And so they've sent us, we've been selected and elected to come to this body and consider important issues facing our state and our citizens, to vet them, to research them, to debate them, and decide what is going to be best in the long term as far as policy, with the minimum amount of unintended consequences. House Joint Resolution 100 is a social experiment in constitutional socialism. It basically says we need to have health care as a fundamental right. Well, what does it mean to have a fundamental right in the Constitution? In 1938, in U.S. versus Caroline Products, the U.S. Supreme Court said that not all rights in the Constitution are equal, that certain rights deserve close scrutiny and must be given a higher priority, and those are fundamental rights. For instance, supposing that we decided we did not want to fund elections. We're going to circumvent having elections by just withholding funds for it. The courts would not allow that because we would be violating a fundamental right under our system of government to have elections. Well, what is being proposed here is that we make having health care, affordable access to quality health care, as a fundamental right. Well, if that's going to be a fundamental right, is it more fundamental than to have the right to food or clothing or shelter? Maybe we should have a fundamental right for all of those things, because could not the same arguments made in favor of having health care access be made for having access to food or to clothing or shelter? Well, of course they could. Why don't we put those in the Constitution as well? Well, the reason is, of course, that the Constitution and our form of government was designed to serve as a shield to people, to allow the citizens that have the benefit of these constitutional protections to live their lives. And yet, what would be done here is to make our Constitution a sword to carve out social policy. That sounds good. But at what consequences? Who would pay for this? As a fundamental right, what would it cost to have health care for 600,000 people? 600,000, if it was just $4,500 a year worth of health care for 600,000, that's $3 billion a year. $6 billion a biennium. Where would that money come from? One suggestion is, why don't we just add a payroll tax? What would that tax be? 18 to 25 cents per dollar. So that means that for every payroll dollar, employers could just pay an additional 18 to 25 cents just for health care. Well, what happens with that? What's the inflation on that? Supposing we did that, what would happen in a few years? Because health care goes up at about 6 to 8% a year minimum, sometimes more than that. Well, wages don't go up that fast. So there has to be more money. So if we can't do it from payroll taxes, what are we going to do? Because it's a fundamental right. And as a fundamental right, the courts would say, the people have voted for this, and therefore you will fund it ahead of all other rights that are not fundamental. So what about education, K-12 education? We spend, 49 to 54% of our budget on education. We got to have money from somewhere. And so we'll just take that money from education, because after all, you have to fund the fundamental rights first. But what if we can't really do that? Then let's take it from health, from public safety, because although we want to be safe, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that it's a fundamental right. We have a responsibility as representatives of the people to assure that we don't legislate just based on the heart, but that also we legislate based on the mind and on the intellect and on the precedent of ages and legislators in the past. In the 224 years that we've been under a constitutional form of government, neither the country nor a single state has taken the step toward constitutional socialism that would be accomplished if this resolution were to pass by a majority of the voters. Colleagues, amending the Constitution in this way would cost too much money, would take from citizens the responsibility to provide for themselves and their families, and boost the requirements and control of our government to an unprecedented level. It is not wise. It is a high road to disaster for us to embark on this road for social experimentation involving constitutional socialism. Please vote no on House Joint Resolution 100.
Further